رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli. One final request for the brothers to come closer to the front. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The brothers at the back. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sayyida Fidda occupies a prominent position in Islamic history as being one of the greatest servants of the message of the religion of Islam, and primarily as being one of the greatest servants of not only the Holy Prophet but also of Fatimah al-Zahra, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala a lady from whose life many lessons may be learned, and indeed many examples may be applied into our lives today. A lady who was the very embodiment of valor and loyalty, of passion and bravery, and a lady whose life has to be examined from a wide variety of angles. For indeed you find that this lady on the 10th of Muharram was 85 years of age, standing alongside Sayyida Zainab and standing alongside the grandson of Rasulullah. For her to reach that age and still show the commitment that she showed as someone who was very young is something extraordinary, and indeed is something that has to be revered but at the same time has to be understood. Because unfortunately the biography of this lady has not been studied. On many occasions you rarely listen to anyone examine Sayyida Fidda's biography. Many times in poetry, for example, you may hear her name mentioned as Bibi Fidda or Janaba Fidda. But if you were to ask many of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, can you tell me her whole life story and provide me with examples as to how she came towards Ahlul Bayt? What were her main stands alongside Ahlul Bayt? What were her main conversations alongside Ahlul Bayt? What was her role on the 10th of Muharram and in Sham? You'll find that many will turn around and say, to tell you the truth, we don't know much about her. We know she was loyal, but we cannot really tell you much about her. Therefore, when we study the life of this great lady, the aim of studying this life is indeed for us to be able to apply from her life the messages into our own, because we find that the first lesson to be learned from this area as to why we examine her biography is that we take her as a role model in our life today. Many times our sisters on the side of the sisters section complain that they don't have enough female role models. They say that you as men have many male role models, as in you have 124,000 prophets, you have saints, you have, for example, companions, you have great scholars, but we, the ladies, do not have anyone to take as a role model. We, for example, may hear Fatima, or we may hear about Zainab, but other than them, we don't have any female or woman role models. The reply is that when we study the biography of Sayyidah Fidda, the studying of this biography is so that we are able to take the many principles from her life and see how they relate to our lives. Because realistically speaking, Sayyidah Fidda is a lady who lived 1,400 years ago. Today, some people may say, why is it that we only study historical figures? It's 1,400 years back. We're in the year 2011. Ethics remain the same whether you're 1,000 years back or you're today. Isn't that true? A lie is a lie. A good word is a good word. A piece of envy is envy. And arrogance is arrogance. Good principles will always remain the same, be they then or be they now. For someone to say that why is it that we only look at historical figures? No, we're looking at ethical traits which remain alive forever. That's why today when you hear people saying the religion of Islam is not a religion for the 21st century, it's for the 7th century. The ethics of the religion in the 7th century are the ethics of the religion in the 21st. Ethics don't die, and therefore the aim of studying her on the first level is so that people can take her as a role model, so that our daughters today can be proud to say that I want to be like Fidda. Isn't that true? As in, how many daughters of Al Muhammad do you find in our communities today saying, oh, I can't wait to live my life like Janaba Fidda lived her life? It's very rare. Why? Because many of them have not studied her as a role model. They may have studied her as an emotional backbone to Ahlul Bayt, but have not studied the essentials of her life which can apply to our life today. Number one. Number two, the study of Janaba Fidda allows us to see the influence of Africa on early Islam. Why? Because we know that Janaba Fidda was from where? Originally, in the opinions of many historians, she was originally from the land of Sudan. That land of Sudan and the land of Ethiopia, and even further than this, other lands in Africa were vital to the growth of the message of the religion of Islam. As in, sometimes Islam in Africa is underestimated. Whereas recently in politics, how much revival did we see? Or how many revolutions did we see in countries of African origin where Muslims revolted? Be it Tunisia, be it Egypt, for example, be it Libya, for example. You find that African Islam has a great history, as in not only Janaba Fidda, but you find, for example, the Holy Prophet, when he was facing his most difficult times as a prophet of God in Mecca, didn't he tell his companions, go to Abyssinia? And in Abyssinia you will find an African priest by the name of Najashi. He said that this man in Najashi is a humble human being. Go to him, Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, see him and he will look after you. You find Africa helped Islam grow. And that's why the first person to be born in Africa who was a Muslim was Abdullah ibn Ja'far, the husband of Sayyidah Zainab. Sayyidah Zainab's husband Abdullah, the son of Ja'far al-Tayyar, was the first Muslim to be born in Africa. So you found that Africa helped Islam then. Janaba Fidda, being from Sudan, was originally of an African background. And even later on, Africa had a great role to play in Islam. In which way? You find, for example, some of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt would only pick their wives from North Africa, not from anywhere else. Imam Sadiq could have easily married someone from Medina, couldn't he? He has so many cousins in Medina, he doesn't need to go out. He ends up marrying a lady by the name of Hamida, originally from modern-day Morocco. He marries this lady by the name of Hamida from North Africa. Imam al-Kadhim, his wife, Tuktam, the mother of our 8th Imam, is also from Africa. Our 8th Imam married a lady from Africa. Even many reports, especially within Al-Kafi of Sheikh al-Kulayni, indicate that the Imam of our time, his mother was from Africa. In other words, what do we find? When we study Janaba Fidda, it allows us to understand the principle in Islam of Inna akramakum inda Allah atqakum. The best amongst you in the eyes of Allah is not the one who comes from country X or country Y. Rather is the one who has consciousness of Allah's presence. Janaba Fidda, when we study her biography, we are not studying someone saying, oh, they are Arabs and that's why they are respected. No, this lady is from Sudan, yet it didn't matter what her race was. What mattered was her principles and the way she lived her life. So taking this on board, let's study her biography in order that we are able to gain an understanding of her life and seek to implement her example into our own life. Because as I said, she lived until the age of 86 and died alongside Sayyida Zainab. Let's see these 86 years, what she gave to this religion. From the outset, if she died at the age of 86, that means she was born 25 years before Hijrah. As in the majority of historians say that she was born 25 years before Hijrah. Someone will say, then how do you reach the conclusion that she was 86? Well, 25 years before Hijrah, and then Karbala was 61 after Hijrah. 61 plus 25 is how old? 86. So let's say in and around 86, 87, she passes away. You find that when she's born 25 years before Hijrah, many ask the question, how did she then come into the service of the house of the Prophet? As in, how did this lady come into the service if she's originally from Africa? What happened was, there were many who were freed slaves who were originally from Africa, who made their way to Arabia. As in, I'll never forget Bilal, the famous companion of Rasulullah. Many call him Bilal al-Habashi, isn't it? Bilal, how did he come to Arabia if he's a Habashi? Let's say he's originally from Africa. How did he come to Arabia? Bilal's mother is the niece of Abraha, the man who sought to attack the Kaaba with the elephants. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Ashabil fil, their head was Abraha. Abraha's niece is Bilal's mother. Abraha's niece was caught on the way when she was fighting, and when she was caught, she became a slave of one of the tribes of Arabia. She eventually married a man and she gave birth to Bilal. She married a man by the name of Rabah. Hence Bilal's name is Bilal ibn Rabah. You find likewise Sayyida Fidda alayhi salam, may Allah bless her soul. Sayyida Fidda, how did she come to Arabia? She originally was royalty like the royalty of Bilal. Bilal, in the same way his niece was from royal background, many reports indicate that Janaba Fidda likewise was from a royal background. And then she had made her way towards Arabia, and that's why you find many historical reports tell us that at the age of 11 she began serving the house of Rasulullah. Now this is something interesting, as in it's not unusual that from the beginning of the ba'tha of Rasulullah, from the beginning of his age of 40 until he leaves for Medina, she has entered the house of Rasulullah and the house of Khadija. And truly, in that house of Rasulullah and that house of Khadija, that's exactly where this lady learned the very meaning of sacrifice. Why? Because when you're a servant in the house of Rasulullah and Khadija, and you witness the amount of sacrifice Khadija is making for this man's message, then you become a personality of sacrifice. Today in the Muslim community, we have very few who sacrifice, unfortunately. There are very few. When you ask them for their time, for the community, you'll find them saying, I'm busy with my studies, I'm busy with work, I can't make it for this event or for that event. You look at them and you say, do you not look at the sacrifices made on the early days of Islam so that you are who you are today? This religion would not have been built were it not for sacrifices of people like Rasulullah or of people like Khadija al-Kubra. You find that sacrifice was the essence of what she saw. As in Janaba Fidda herself mentions, I was so young and I would see Rasulullah and I'd see Khadija. And she'd say, when I'd see Khadija, how much money Khadija gave to this religion. That every time Rasulullah needed any sort of wealth for the spread of this religion, she would help. But she said, I saw Khadija sacrifice more than anything in the Sha'b of Abu Talib. You know Abu Talib, when he gave his life